Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to do another video on this pivot bearing for the supercharger belt tensioner because I've done a thread on it and I don't think it's that self-explanatory. So first thing, take this seat mount off. There's 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just hit it here and on the front. There. Off it comes. That's all there is to it. You got to get that off so you can get in here and do your thing and get to this pivot bearing. One guy's got 25 hours on his ski and might as well do it now. Might as well do them when they're brand new as far as I'm concerned. Here's the actual pivot bearing. Actually, I'll get a screwdriver here. I should be ready for making these movies by now, but always improving. And so anyways, these pivot bearings seize up and then the belt starts slipping and all kinds of things. So what the heck, why not do it? This is what we're after. This is a pivot bearing. This isn't really complicated, everybody. Once you've done it once, and I've done it twice now, there's not a lot to it, but just follow through. Anyways, first thing I do, take a picture of the whole area. Take a couple pictures so you can't make a mistake. What I do, the first thing to go is these hoses here on the exhaust manifold. Take that off. I mark everything with masking tape. I write on the masking tape, I number it. That'll be hose number 1. Then undo the hose on your catch can, number 2. Number 3, undo these 2 bolts. I think they're 10 millimeter. This is the catch can. There's a hose on the bottom of the catch can. It's kind of awkward. You got to lift the catch can out and pull it off to the side and wrangle that bottom hose off. Mark that hose number 4. So now your catch can's off. Hose 1, 2, 3, 4. You might have a round catch can. Doesn't matter, just mark them. Get this catch can out of here. It's got to go. Okay, so that's gone. You're already halfway there. Okay, the other issue is once you get that catch can off, if you look down at my supercharger belt, there's the supercharger belt right there. Okay? There's a pulley there, and let's see if I can get a shot. I think I can. You see my screwdriver? There we are. Okay? That's the pulley for the supercharger. Okay? So, this whole belt is covered with this. And this is a supercharger belt cover. Take that off. I recommend you leave it off. I just tape the bolts there. There's a bolt here, 10 millimeter, a bolt on this end. I'll warn you, it's not easy to pull out of there. You got to twist and turn it and pry it. You know, don't stick a screwdriver in there, but you can get it out. It's made out of plastic. Get rid of this thing. You don't need it. I wouldn't put it on ever again because you want to be able to see in there and clean. So anyways, the belt cover's off. Your catch can's off, okay? The next part is really quite easy. You get a breaker bar with a 19 millimeter socket on it. This is a breaker bar. There's your breaker bar. You'll put it on a nut we refer to as the dummy nut, okay? This whole unit, these 2 crown nuts, 1, I forget the sizes, 2, mark them with a felt pen. See how I did that? Because we're going to undo this top one and bottom one after, not right now. And I want to know how tight to tighten them up to. So I put a felt marker there and there, same as on the top. So I forget the sizes. But anyways, we don't touch those yet. This is the dummy nut right here. That doesn't turn. What we're going to do is we're going to put a breaker bar on it with a 19 millimeter and pull it, the breaker bar, this way towards the right side of the ski. So the breaker bar, this is your breaker bar, will be down here. I can't really do it with all this stuff properly. Will be on the dummy nut and position this breaker bar so it's as close to this exhaust manifold, because you're going to pull the breaker bar this way. Okay? What that'll do, when you're on that dummy nut with the breaker bar, and you're pulling towards me, it will compress this spring. This is your belt tensioner spring right here. See if we can get a good shot. And what will happen is, when you pull that breaker bar towards you, this spring will come up, it will compress, and you will be able to, and this idler pulley, we'll call this the idler pulley here, will not be resting on the belt anymore. It will come up. It'll come up towards you. You can reach down and pull the belt off. Here's your belt on the supercharger pulley, and you can literally just pull the belt off there and on this pulley, on the motor pulley, and take the belt that way towards the intercooler. The belt will come right off. That's all there is to it. Compress the spring, pull your breaker bar this way, the belt will slide right off towards the back of the ski. So your belt will literally be sitting down in here. It won't be on either pulley. It won't be on this pulley at the supercharger. It won't be on this pulley. Okay? Dead easy. Now, here's the trick. Your breaker bar is going to be over here because you're compressing the spring. You just pulled the belt off. Slowly release the breaker bar. Don't just let it go flying back. Release it to like here. Take the breaker bar off. Undo these two crown nuts. 1, 2. Slide this idler assembly off. Your dummy nut will come, your idler pulley, your spring, your pivot bearing, which is located in here, will go that way. Watch, there's a washer on the bottom of mine anyways, bottom I think. There was an extra washer in here. Watch it doesn't fall down. And same as up here. There's a washer and a dampener assembly inside there. I tape it. So anyways, you undid this crown nut, the bottom crown nut. Take this whole idler assembly off. And this is what you're going to see after you hammer it out. So I'll show you how to hammer it out. See, so this is your idler assembly. That's what you're going to have sitting on your table, that whole assembly. The pivot bearing's already been knocked out, but you haven't done that yet. So sit your idler assembly on here on some wood, 3 pieces. This is an actual pivot bearing from Anton in Russia. It's stainless. You won't have that yet until you hammer it out. You take a 3/8 socket. You see how it goes right into the washer? What will happen is, your idler assembly will be sitting in this area. This washer will still be on. You line it up there. Take a hammer, 1, 2, 3. The bushing will drop out the bottom. Your idler assembly's here that I just showed you on my computer. And you will see your pivot bearing. It'll probably be rusty. It'll be dry. There will be an O-ring on the bottom. There will be an O-ring on the top. Take it all apart. Just take the O-rings off. Clean up the pivot bearing with sandpaper, wire brush, whatever you want. Same as the inside where the pivot bearing sits. Clean up inside there. You see, here's your O-ring here. And that's what you're looking at. Let's see if we got any more pictures that might be helpful. There's one from Corey. Hang on. So there we are. Okay, so there's your idler assembly. You've just taken that off. There's your dummy nut. There's your spring. There's your 3/8 socket. And I'm just about to hammer it out. You see how I lined it up on the wood? I'm just going to hammer that 3/8 socket. And this is what will happen. The pivot bushing will fall out the bottom. You have a washer on the top. Anyways, clean it all up. Put lots of grease on it. I even grease the O-rings. Make sure, let's go back to this picture. Let's go back to this picture. You clean up the inside where the pivot bearing sits. Put it back in the same way. You see how the orientation is? There's a trough inside. It's hollowed out, filled out with grease. Lots of grease. What kind of grease? Well, up to you. I've been using this synthetic grease. There's wheel bearing grease. You could use copper coat according to Corey in Australia. Put it back together. Put the bushing there. Now, you'll have to rest the bottom of the bushing with the idler assembly. This being the idler assembly. This time you won't have a hole in the bottom to hammer it out. You'll actually rest this on the wood. And then, make sure your O-rings are in. You'll put the washer back on. This time you'll take a 3/4 socket and hammer it around. Okay? This will be all pressed together. And then grab it with your fingers and make sure it turns. And turn it a bunch of times and it should turn beautifully. You're done. Go back to your ski. Take your idler assembly. We'll call this the idler assembly. See if I got a better photo. It's not the one I want. Okay, that's your idler assembly. It's all back together. You hammered that bushing back. It's not a big deal. You don't really hit it hard. Okay. Put the idler assembly back on. This being your idler assembly. Okay, 1, 2. It's all one piece. Do up these crown nuts. 1, 2 to the marks you've already made with your magic marker. They're nice and tight. Now again, you've got to put your breaker bar on to compress the spring. And it takes time. Go slow. Your breaker bar will eventually end up right over on this side of the ski. I slip my belt on this pulley first. Then I put it on that pulley. Sometimes I struggle getting these belts on. So don't let people tell you, oh, it's just 2 seconds. You compress it and it goes. I've struggled a bit. But I've learned to put the belt on the pulley on the engine. Then the pulley on the supercharger. Then, when you get the pulley on, you don't have a lot of room to play with. Slowly, again, you've compressed your dummy nut this way, right? You slip the belt on. You fought with it a bit, probably. You got it on. You feel it all lined up. Slowly release this again. The idler pulley will rest on the belt. Visually check it all. Looks good. Run your hand all around the belt on both pulleys and you're happy with it. Okay, you've done up these 2 crown nuts. You can put your catch can back on. The bottom hose is a pain. You put that on first. That was hose number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1. Double check everything. I think I didn't miss anything. And you can probably go fire up the engine for 5 seconds and watch the belt. Make sure the belt is staying on. So if you run it for 5-7 seconds and the belt doesn't jump off, you're good to go. After each ride, give this pivot bearing outside a little wipe with a rag in case any grease is oozing out of it. That's it. Hope that helps.